When I think about showing up online, my brain instantly jumps to that advice we've all heard: just post the content. But if it were that simple, why does it feel so complicated? Why does it feel unsafe? Why do I spiral instead of just hitting publish? That's the spiral I want to explore with you today. My name is Monique Malcolm, and this is Spiraling Forward. This is the show where we get real about the creative journey. Not the polished highlight reel, but the messy middle. The doubts, the detours, the spirals we all find ourselves in. Each week, I share the unfiltered stories behind building a creative business, along with the mindset shifts that help keep us going. Because spirals aren't failure, they're part of the process. And the more we can name them, the easier it becomes to move through them. Before we dive into today's spiral, I want to share that this episode is supported by my book, Don't Let Fear Have All the Fun. Here's the truth. Fear isn't going anywhere, but that doesn't mean it has to run the show. Inside of this book, you'll learn how to work through your fears, big or small, or chase your boldest dreams or quietest desires. You don't need to be fearless to take action. Just quiet that booming chorus of fear and take your next small step. You can grab a copy today at taketinyaction.com/book. And now, let's get into the spiral. For season 1, we are exploring the spirals that keep us small. I want to unpack the patterns, the protective mechanisms we've developed to keep ourselves safe that are now holding us back in our business from growing, making a bigger impact. And I knew right away what the first spiral had to be. It's the one I find most challenging to move through, and I'm guessing it's probably familiar to you too. For me, one of the biggest spirals is around being visible, especially online. Because on the surface, it sounds so simple, like ridiculously simple. Just show up, be consistent, post the content. Easy, right? But underneath, it feels complicated, layered, and honestly, I don't feel safe. The internet is vast and faceless, and that really freaks me out, like more than you can understand. And there's a lot of resistance I really can't seem to get around. I can trace this resistance back to my childhood. Humans, as great as we are, we're funny. We like things to fit into really neat boxes and categories. I assume this has evolutionary roots. Early humans needed to know this furry creature equals good, that furry creature equals bad, that kind of thing. So even as a child, I didn't fit neatly into categories. I've always stood out. I was always the tallest girl, often the tallest kid in my classes. And I look different. As a Black woman, I'm really fair. I have green eyes, ash blonde hair, and I'm not biracial. So by appearance, I'm not easy to categorize. That brought a lot of attention. Most of it was unwanted and way too early. Lots of questions. Are you Black or are you white? There was teasing, there was name calling, and for me, just a real general sense of othering. I could tell from the questions that people asked, they just thought something was different about me. And even though nobody named that outright, it was just in the way that they stared and the questions that they asked that kind of told me like, okay, y'all see something about me that's not what you see in other kids. And that made me feel deeply, deeply self-conscious. I was forced into visibility before I was ready, not seen for my essence and like who I was as a person, but noticed for my difference. And when that happened, that attention didn't feel safe. I internalized this message. Being visible equals being vulnerable to harm and teasing. And that visibility, I came to learn it as exposure without a choice. That's when my inner protective part stepped in and said, okay, our role here, we're going to shift it. We're going to shield her from more pain by helping her shrink, blend in, control situations, or just avoid them altogether. So the way that I learned to cope with all of this unwanted attention was to shrink and try to fade into the background, not be so visible, not stand out. Because really, as a child, you don't want to stand out. Like you just want to be like all the other kids doing kid things. It doesn't feel like a good thing to stand out. And it worked, at least somewhat back then. As an adult, I have done a lot of inner work to get to a place where I feel like I can own my presence, to really feel comfortable in my skin and accept that I'm always going to be seen. I cannot physically shrink myself. It's impossible. I'm not a person who blends in. And I have made peace with that. I've accepted it. I'm comfortable with myself. I feel good about where I'm at. And yet, here I am, stuck, unable to fully embrace showing up online and being seen. Not for lack of effort, intelligence, or creativity, but because my nervous system, my fear of visibility, my past experiences, and my inner protector parts haven't yet agreed it's safe to move beyond this. When I think about showing up online, my brain immediately jumps to that advice we've all heard: just post the content. And that's exactly where it starts to go off the rails for me. Here's what usually happens. I'll get inspired to share something. I start creating the content, writing the post, filming the video, and then I hit this wall of fear and resistance. Suddenly, I'm second guessing everything. I retreat. I promise myself I'll just try again tomorrow. It's not that important. Nobody cares if I post this content. It's fine. I'll do it tomorrow. And then I feel frustrated and annoyed that I pulled back, that I'm not posting the content. And it shouldn't be this hard, right? So now I'm in a shame spiral, beating myself up because I can't seem to just post the content. Over and over, I spiral in that same loop. It's self-defeating and it's very exhausting. And here's the thing. Invisibility has its own cost. So there's this tension between wanting to be visible, to experience growth and further my business. And then there's this place of, no, I want to hide and be safe. And that invisibility challenge has a cost. There is the slow ache of going unseen, the frustration of pouring energy into work that doesn't gain traction, the sting of watching opportunities go to other people while I wonder, what about me? The truth is, my protective programming is creating the very pain it was designed to prevent. So either way, there's discomfort, the potential sting of criticism when I'm visible, or the ache of stagnation when I'm not. But here's a very crucial difference. One keeps me stuck where I am, the other creates possibility for growth. And that, my friend, is the spiral. And I'm curious to know, is it just me? There's a lot of advice out there about how to show up online. Just post the content. Be consistent. Just get over the fear. But here's what I've learned. The problem isn't always fear in the way that we think of it. It's not about finding the perfect magic trick to suddenly feel confident. It's not about willing yourself into visibility through more discipline or strategy. What's really happening is old protective programming. My body learned a long time ago that being visible wasn't safe. And that pattern is still running, even though the conditions of my life have changed. And I don't think I'm alone here. Maybe for you, it's not Instagram. Maybe it's raising your rates, speaking up in a meeting, or sharing your art with people that actually know you. Anywhere you risk being noticed, that same alarm system might start blaring. The thing is, the alarm isn't broken. It's just calibrated to outdated information. It's like having a smoke detector that goes off every time you toast bread. Like technically, it's working exactly as designed, but it's so sensitive and it's not actually helping you anymore. That's why trying to logic my way out of this doesn't work. The better question isn't, what exactly am I afraid of? The better question is, how do I help my nervous system experience safety while being visible? Because if my body believes visibility equals danger, there's no amount of pep talks or content calendars that will override that. I have to gently recalibrate the alarm so it knows the difference between real risk and imagined risk. And here's the reframe I'm working with. Visibility isn't about throwing yourself into the spotlight. It can be a practice ground for micro courage, just taking and building courage in very small steps and small doses. A place to experiment with how much of yourself you're ready to share, piece by piece, until your nervous system starts to recognize, oh, this is okay. This feels safe. So instead of asking, how do I force myself to show up online? I'm asking, what's one small way I can let my body feel safe being seen today? That's the magic question, friends. And that's where the shift begins. Not in forcing visibility, but in experimenting with small, safe ways of being seen, which brings me to the tiny action that I want to leave you with today. If you notice yourself spiraling around visibility and the just post the content advice isn't working, here's your tiny action. Before you post something into the wilds of the internet, because it can be a wild place, try sharing it in a smaller container first. Write it in your notes app. Text it to a friend, share it in a private group, or maybe send it to your email list. I actually find emailing my list about new things that I have coming out or ideas feels a lot safer than sending it into like the internet at large. So you might have that same experience. This gives your nervous system a chance to experience visibility without all of that extra overwhelm. You're still getting to be seen, just at a scale that feels manageable. And each time you do it, you're recalibrating that inner smoke detector. You're teaching your body, look, we survived. We're safe here. This is fine. And that's it. One small intentional experiment in being seen. And if you repeat it enough, you'll start to notice that that alarm doesn't sound quite so loud. The spiral over visibility isn't weakness or lack of discipline. It's an old protective pattern that once kept us safe and now keeps us small. But the beautiful thing about spirals is that they're not circles. Every time we return to the same struggle, we're doing it with a little more awareness, a little more compassion, and a few more tools than we had before. So if showing up online feels hard for you too, know this. You're not broken. I promise you that you're not. You're simply recalibrating. One tiny action at a time, you're teaching your body that visibility can feel safe, even expansive. And that, my friend, is how we spiral forward. Lastly, before I let you go, spiraling forward is listener supported. The best way to keep these conversations going is by joining me on Patreon. Your support makes this work sustainable, and as a patron, you'll get access to bonus content and behind the scenes extra. I only share it over there. You can find the link in the show notes, or you can just go straight to patreon.com/spiraling forward. So that's it for this episode. I'll be back next week with another spiral. Until then, be gentle with yourself. Remember, spiraling isn't failure, it's expansion. And you're already further along than you think.